Let's discuss that thing you don't believe. When we go to school, we spend a lot of time being wrong. That's the point. We go to school to learn new things and to learn how to get the right answers. Learning from mistakes allows the student to see why an answer is unambiguously right or wrong, and makes learning easier and more useful than simply memorizing. Anyone who understands why 1 apple and 2 apples add up to 3 apples understands that this isn't a matter of belief. It's a matter of repeatable observation and fact. And yet, students still make mistakes. Those who correct their mistakes graduate. Those who don't sometimes don't survive the academic environment for long. They may be passed along to graduation, but they have no skills that allow them to compete for a job, for a good salary, or for the affections of a mate that values basic survival skills. Most people value intelligence and aspire to be smarter, because being smarter gives them more opportunity to make more money. It's a simple truth. Most people accept this as one of the fundamental facts of life. DNA makes mistakes when it replicates. The chemical forces that cause it to make new copies are only approximate at doing their job really well. That means that small changes occur frequently in the DNA of an individual during his lifetime, during the process of conception, and generally within the species over time. One particular gene changes in one particular animal. Then DNA gets its final exam. The competition for job skills in the natural world. These natural job skills are pretty simple. Stay alive and make more like you. Sometimes an error in DNA returns an answer that gets a neutral grade, something like a student coming up with an answer on a test that might not be the expected answer. It just isn't necessarily wrong either. His report card might say something like, shows creativity, but is otherwise unexceptional. The vast majority of errors in DNA are errors of this kind. A change in a gene that does the exact same thing in approximately the same way as the original gene. It makes the exact same protein, but just isn't exactly the same gene. There are multiple ways that a gene can encode for a particular amino acid, and only occasionally is one of them either much more or much less efficient than the original. Sometimes the error is nothing more than making an additional copy of the original gene. Sometimes the error is a major functional change in a copy of a gene, creating a new gene that encodes for a new protein. If any error in the DNA of an individual creates a problem for that one animal, that animal can fail the final exam. Sometimes the failure is overlooked because it's small enough and a sort of DNA village idiot hangs around for a while. But nobody wants to make a child with the village idiot, because the village idiot isn't anything they want to have their children grow up to be themselves. The village idiot sort of fades off into the background, replaced with DNA that is more advantageous. Once in a great while, an error occurs in an individual that's better than the original, and that DNA graduates with honors. It's more likely to be better at competing. It will be the DNA that gets the fat paycheck, lots of food, and lots of other DNA that wants to make children with it. Students that do exceptionally well on their exams tend to do better in life. DNA is constantly trying new answers, not because it has a desire to be better. It just makes mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes are like an accidental discovery, a way to do something new, or to do something old but better. Sometimes DNA invents a new resource by accident, just because DNA is constantly making mistakes in coding, and inevitably some of those mistakes turn out to be better than the original. The first DNA with the advantageous mistake is like an inventor with a new patent. Someone invents a round thing that can be fixed to a plank, and the next thing you know, that plank is a cart, instead of just a frame to drag around on the ground. The idea is a good one. Those who use that new idea can do more with less effort than those who just drag stuff around. Pretty soon the competition is stacked in favor of those who use the new idea, and they get all of the good jobs and all of the food. Those who don't inherit that feature gradually fade off into obsolescence or extinction. That one organism with the advantageous error has a higher likelihood of having offspring and providing for that offspring, just like the student that did really well on his exams has a better chance of getting a good job. That is an example of microevolution. And unless you believe that people who can't read or do math should be given a job that requires reading and math skills anyway, or that a bank, for example, that hired a bank manager that couldn't do either shouldn't go out of business, then you believe in the premise at the heart of evolution theory, that those who pass the test get better jobs with more pay, better resources, more money, more sex, more children, etc. If you believe that a bank manager who can't read or do math should still get a good job, that the bank should be protected from his lack of skills, then you believe that the things that you do better than someone else should not qualify you for a better job. Why would it be reasonable for someone less qualified to get the job that you are better suited to do? In the real world, you would probably insist that you be considered based on your ability to do that job better than the village idiot. In real life, in nature, that demand for open competition is the rule, and that is what drives evolution. DNA finds a better way of doing something, or finds something new to do that gives one organism an advantage, and that new idea becomes a family business. That family business becomes an industry, and eventually an empire, spreading out and outcompeting those who don't share that gene in their own DNA. DNA is the ultimate free market model. Only those who can compete rule the market, and in nature, the market is very simple. Those who eat and breed live. Those who don't starve and don't breed. You would have to be some sort of bio-communist not to understand this mechanism. This is the mechanism of microevolution. Tiny, advantageous changes over time, tested by their value in the marketplace of nature. Volta discovered that electricity could be made chemically, and experimenters, anxious to find new things to do with this new electricity, discovered that electricity changed the direction of a compass. That meant that electricity had a magnetic component, and they discovered that a changing magnetic field could also create an electric current. Tiny changes in an accidental discovery, which over time added to more tiny changes, produced an electrical generator and an electric motor. An electric motor has no resemblance to the frog leg that originally brought electricity to Volta's attention. Tiny changes, one at a time, added up to turn a stack of wet paper and metal discs, the first voltaic pile, or battery, into a machine that makes electricity by turning a wire coil inside a magnetic field. They look nothing alike, but they do the same thing and evolved from the same origins. So don't ask where the electric motor with frog legs is. It's a stupid question, and it makes intelligent people not want to have stupid children with you. This is an example of macroevolution, when tiny changes add up over time to produce something entirely different than the original, but still having a common ancestry, the same original genetic idea. You would have to believe that walking behind an ox dragging a pointy stick was equal to a tractor driven by a diesel engine, not to believe in macroevolution. You would have to believe that riding a horse from town to town to deliver a note was equal to a telegraph, that a telegraph was equal to a telephone, that a telephone tethered by a copper wire to a fixed location was equal to your iPhone that you can take with you anywhere. Tiny changes added up over time to result in something morphologically different, but sharing a common ancestor. You would have to believe that just because the genetic differences between humans and apes are so tiny, that there is no real difference between them. You would have to believe that new features made by accident and tested in the free market of natural competition don't make you more qualified as a species than a chimp. To say that evolution isn't a valid theory, you would have to be saying that you were equal to a chimp. To say that evolution is valid only takes the statement that tiny changes over time make all the difference between the two.